going to be weird. I mean, we're living to this weirdest time of this like intense rise of racism in the U.S. I mean, and maybe it's not a rise of racism, and it's always been there. It's just now people are looking at it. It's exposed.
No, it's both. It's unveiling and it's a rise for sure.
Yeah, and you know, so I think that's the challenge that we have to get over. And I think it's interesting because like in Master of None, this is a great Indians on TV that episode.
Social Network. The Indian guy is a white guy.
No, I read that he's 1/16th Indian.
Who cares? If you go back far enough, we're all 1/16th something. I'm probably 1/16th black. You think they're gonna let me play Blade?
Where you're talking about doing the accent, right? And Sundish and I joke about this stuff all the time because Sundish does a great accent, and like he loves to like play that up, and I'm like, I'm not doing that accent because that would be super bad.
That is the absolute correct instinct on your part. There is nothing more annoying than a non-Indian doing the fucking Indian accent to me and thinking that I think it's funny. And Sundesh, how many times in your life? I would say it happens even today. Once every 6 to 8 months, and it's well-meaning, but it's like just no. I'm better at it than you are. Why do you think I think this is
That's
funny?
for sure. That's for sure.
Right.
Also, it's 2020. Like, just don't.
But
yeah,
the one thing I wonder though too is like there's such an undercurrent of anger now in all of that. That I think it's changed the tenor of that. I mean, like in that, I think like accents and things like that. And maybe this is dumb white guy, perspective, and like everybody's like pissed off about it always. But I think there's like more anger about it now because underlying it is this deeper anger that's coming out.
I totally agree. In fact, the thing I just told you about the accent, I'm reminded now of an awesome conversation I had. My HBO Max show, which you listed in your monologue about my career, which was very impressive. Thank you for doing all that homework. We did this episode. By the way, guys, my HBO Max show comes out August 27th. I think that's going to be released next week in the press. Anyway,
can't wait.
Can't wait.
So we do an episode in Denmark, and it's about refugees and immigration. And I had this conversation with this academic there, kind of talking about what we just were discussing. And he rightfully brought up. We started talking about the lack of forgiveness we have today in conversation, and that's obviously. I think we've seen like two big statements from academics, and I think it was a lot of professors that did a statement, and then maybe yesterday a group of journalists did something similar, which was just talking about how we're so hard on each other these days and we're not forgiving. And to your point, which was a well taken, great one. Like if someone comes and talks to you, and I will say, I never get pissed at people. I have before. I have definitely gotten pissed, but I generally don't. Someone comes and talks to me in accent, and I can see in them that there's nothing hostile or negative or ill meaning about it. Then that's on me to treat it with kindness. And I can still, because someone's well-meaning, so I can be nice to them. Maybe I can explain to them why it makes me feel uncomfortable, but then also maybe I don't have to be uncomfortable about it if someone's like, sometimes things that feel offensive aren't necessarily offensive because, to your point, they're triggers, they're reminders of this much broader macro thing. And we obviously live in a time, I mean, the cancel culture is out of fucking control. There's a lot of sloppy liberalism going on that undermines real liberalism. And nothing is more liberal than the marketplace of ideas, the free movement of thoughts without judgment. People should be able to say their opinions and disagree without being hammered for it.
Well, I think part of the problem, though, is white folks have had a lot of their opinions out there for a long time, and I think people are sick of hearing those opinions nowadays. So maybe it's time for some other opinions a little bit.
Yeah, but you know what? Even then, one of the things that we're seeing in culture in a big way right now is white shame and white guilt, and that's a tricky thing for I mean, I feel like I can hear it even in your cadence a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's like I'm keeping my head down. I'm trying to show reverence to let you know that I don't want to offend you or say the wrong thing or be disrespectful. And you know, that's a tricky line to walk because it's awesome. It's an awesome instinct, but it's not necessarily fair to you. It's not necessarily fair, even though I understand why you justify it. I understand why it's justified. And I think everyone wants nothing more than for some racial equality to finally show the fuck up at this country.
Yeah.
And I think it's people like yourself who are leading the charge, you know, in good things happening. You know, so
it's funny because there's sort of like your public persona and your private persona. Because there's things I say, you know, Sundish and I are tight, you know, there's a lot of love between each other and we joke about shit all the time. And some of the shit we joke about is totally inappropriate, right? I mean, because, you know, mocking racism is funny. I mean, it's ripe. Racism is ripe for comedy, right? And so we joke about that shit all the time, but that's stuff I would never say publicly, right? Because I have to be aware of the context, right?
Well, that's one thing that shouldn't change for a while, which is white people should not be allowed to do race jokes, period.
Yeah.
For like, I don't know, like there should just be like
put us in timeout.
We should all agree, like maybe like 100 years or so, well, you're up for parole, but like that should just like that much I'm okay with. Like,
I mean, But if we can't make Indian jokes, if I can't make, like, this is what I was telling Chris. I'm like, man, if I can't joke around about this stuff, I'm gonna go crazy. You know, like, because there's so much goodness there. My defense mechanism growing up, when, you know, I was being called, you know, Hindu, Dothead, Gandhi, whatever it is, you know, go back to your country or whatever. Before, I wanted to fight, right? Because I'm a tough guy, you know, all that kind of stuff. And that was just not working at all, you know. And I learned, like, but if I like accept it a little bit and I just kind of make a joke about it, it's funny how, like, all of a sudden that guy wants to be my friend, and then I'm introducing all my white friends to Indian food and stuff like that, and they're like, "Wow, I never thought I'd eat curry. You know, I can. You know, this tastes pretty good. You know, it's like, yeah, well, don't go to the Star of India buffet for $4.99. You know, go to the other.
But you know, you do. I mean, like, you use the humor of it as sort of a way to deflect, and you know, sometimes we're in situations where, you know, people say racist shit to you all the time. I hear it all the time. And, you know, like you kind of roll with it and you're kind of good natured about it. And it kind of pisses me off. Right. We have conversations after the fact about this, because I'm like, that's bullshit, man. You shouldn't have to do that kind of stuff. You know, it's like, well, I get really, I get kind of defensive for something. And then like, I don't need to stick up for him because he kick people's asses more than I would. But you know, like, there's a thing about it, like, and you talk about sort of this white guilt and stuff like that. And I kind of feel like, you know, this is kind of a white problem to solve, right? It's like, you know, like we keep saying, like, you know, black people got to do this and they got to do that. And it's like, you know, the people with the power have to give up the power, right? And
would you say that you're embarrassed by what your family of race has become in that sense?
Constantly, yeah. I mean, I see stupid shit coming out all the time. And I think, you know, some of it's just straight up ignorance. It's just lack of exposure. Because I think Americans, especially when you get out of a big city, just have so little exposure to other people and other cultures and other ways of thinking about shit. You know, so like, it's tricky. This is a hard conversation because it's like, in some regards, it's like, I don't want to be mad at people for being dumb, but I want to be mad at people for being dumb.
Oh, same. I struggle with that as well. Right? Because I toggle between being able to have intellectual conversations of how to rationally treat people you disagree with like family, which is really the best way to deal with conflict. I toggle between that and these fucking idiots. Forget idiots. A lot of times it's like these fucking horrible, evil people. And that's toxic, but it's like, I don't know. I also think it's natural to evolution. I mean, you know, our society is changing at the pace at which it's changing. I'm glad that it's headed in the direction it is finally. And I'm exhausted by this country that that I do feel like it's like, okay, this should have happened. It feels like we were ready to do this 20 years ago. Like, why
why are we still having this conversation?
Yeah. Why does it feel like other countries are doing better than this? But if you go look around and look at other countries, there's not other countries that are particularly doing better at it. There's other countries, first of all, I travel so much for all my work. Like I immerse myself, I'd say quite frequently in other cultures, and everyone's got their own fucked up shit and they're all trying to figure it out. And, for me, it's like, I feel like, one thing that I do really feel is that, specifically when it comes to race, the people on the other side of this issue, the vast majority of them are actually incredibly decent, loving, wonderful human beings. I mean, look, I'm from North Carolina. So let's talk specifically on a political level. I know a lot of Republicans. One of the kind of core tenets to conservatism is conservatism literally means sameness, and the thing that tradition in the South, at the core of that is family. Mm-hmm. And so these people are actually some of the most loyal people I know. Are these kind of Southern Republicans. Family first, do whatever you can to protect your tribe. And that's why SEC fans are the craziest people in the world. They'll do literally anything to defend their team. And unfortunately, when it comes to a head politically, is when their loyalty transcends, I think, look, to say crassly, their own morality.
Yeah.
And I think it's like, I'll be loyal to my family so much that I allow it to blind me from my own values as they relate to humanity.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the thing I've learned, as I've grown up, because like when I was young, I was just like in everybody's face, screw you, dude, you're an asshole, blah, 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 blah. But what I've realized, and I agree with everything you just said. But if you go at somebody, they go into they get more deeply entrenched in that view. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's through progressive conversation that you change perspectives and attitudes, right? I mean, we have these conversations with people all the time where I don't agree with them at all, but we have a dialogue, and I can be respectful, we can be respectful, and I can respect and like these people, but we don't agree on a lot of things. But I think that conversation started, and I think that's the way to kind of advance the cause a little bit.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to sell stuff when Chris is like with a client in the corner talking about politics. I'm like, oh shit, this is gonna be a tough one to close.
I would never bring up politics, and if I did, we all did, no chance.
Yeah, so Ravi's got my back.
It's a little bit of a tightrope.
Chris goes right in, dude. Chris goes right in, and I keep like kicking him under the table, and I'm like, dude, not right now, man.
But I don't think we've ever lost a deal because we've had these conversations.
No. In fact, I think there's a lot of mutual respect from it. It's just, but I do think that this is the new world, right? We always say, for me, it's been don't talk about religion and politics at work. But now I feel like politics is coming into the workplace. This world is different now, and so there's like a blending happening, and those conversations are going to happen more and more in a business situation. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough.
I had this thought last night. Let me float this idea by you guys. This is something that I was just, while I was laying in bed thinking about last night. I feel like politics itself are increasingly archaic. The two-party system to me is so irrelevant to the way, and I think that's really contributing in a significant way to what we're experiencing right now. Because at its core, it's tribalism and everyone feeling like they need to go play on one team or the other, and this is the Super Bowl, so someone's got to win, and we all got to play our best. And I feel like so much of it is out of partisanship, when really we live in a time that, and this is a sensibility that is accelerated in the last 10 years, where all of our identities are increasingly nuanced, and there's more intersectionality. I've said that word I think twice or three times now in this, than there's ever been. Niche markets, niche products. We wear each of our choices in life, and in shopping, as a way to define ourselves. And similarly, I feel like we all have an a la carte menu of values, and we have a need for that now. Anyway, I'm just curious. I wanted to throw that out to you guys because I hadn't discussed that with anyone.
Yeah.
No, I think, you're talking kind of to the identity politics that we're kind of living with nowadays. And I think there's a couple things, and I totally agree with you on that. I think that there's a couple things that are going on there, right? I think the biggest problem we have right now is wealth inequality. And wealth inequality is created, it's broken us apart as a single society. So there's no American identity necessarily anymore. There's different groups of people with different levels of wealth, and I think that creates
a completely different experience.
Completely different. I mean, the entrepreneur, the VC in Silicon Valley is so different from the rural Mississippi person, and it's not to say they can't get there, but I was a political science major, and I had a great political science professor who said you can't have a democracy without a strong middle class, because you have this polarization of interests, right? And I think that's what we're seeing. And I think that, without that, we're gonna have these two cultures in America that are going to be constantly in conflict.
I agree completely.
And what you were saying about,
do you see a path?
What's that?
Do you see a path to that? Finish what you were saying just now, and then I want to know what you.
I think that I think we really have to. I think we have to address wealth inequality. I think we have to bring the two ends closer together, right? I think that's a healthier way for us as a democracy, and I think not doing that is a bit of an existential threat. But I think also
is that achieved through a redistribution of wealth, or through creating more opportunities for the lower class, or both, or?
I think that, and this is going to here's where I get into trouble. I think you're going to have some sort of redistributive sort of economic programs, but I do think you have to increase economic opportunity. But there's you have to move it along a little faster, and there's so many entrenched interests. I don't think there's any other way to do it without some sort of wealth redistribution, and that doesn't mean like we're going to become this communist nation, and all that. Everybody
just talking about the difference. It could be as simple as a different look. We have that right now. People who make more money pay more taxes than people who make less money. So like that in and of itself and that's a system that works. We have that because our country needs it. You're just saying more of that, which I entirely agree with.
Yeah. Well, let's go back to where we were in the 50s. Let's go back to the marginal tax rates of the 50s.
What were the marginal? I don't know that.
I mean, there were very high marginal tax rates. The wealthy paid significantly more, but there wasn't the kind of wealth disparity either, right? So it was a little bit of a different animal.
And it's not just through taxes, right? I mean, what we're seeing an increasing trend of people giving, and obviously that's not a reliable infrastructure,
right? Yeah,
but like rich people deciding that it's in vogue to give is a great trend.
It is, but it's also problematic too, right? Because how they give determines what our priorities in society are. And I think a great example of that is Bill Gates. Bill Gates, turned his attention to education, and he put a lot of money into education, and it screwed up the education system because his priorities weren't appropriate for what education was. He came in with a very tech-centric approach to education, which was a lot of monitoring, testing, analytics, and things like that, right? But that's not how education really works, right?
Wait, why did it hurt education, though? One would think that that any foundation effort towards education, if it's done in earnest, even if it fails, should be net good because it experimented with an idea.
Yeah, but what happened is that, I mean, we hear this constant thing about this, all the testing that's in schools and how it's detracting from the mission of teaching and kids' education, right? That came out of a lot of what was going on with Bill Gates. I mean, he was influencing politicians, and they were demanding more metrics around how schools were performing. And we got into this very performance-centric model, which is not really beneficial to kids, right? And so, schools were chasing after money, states were chasing after money, and so like one billionaire's, perspective, right or wrong. And I think Bill Gates has talked about how he feels he made mistakes doing that too.
You're saying there needs to be some democratization of where the efforts are.
Well, right. I mean,
because otherwise that can lead to abuses, even if they're inadvertent.
Right. I mean, he was well-intentioned, and I think a lot of people have good intentions, but a billionaire donating money shouldn't be how we make public policy.
Right. Right. Yeah, it'd be fucking great. Yeah. I totally agree.
If you like what you saw, hit that like button and click on that subscribe button. That helps a ton. And if you want to get notifications when I post new content, click on that bell icon. And I will see you in the next video.